And that's why it's getting hot, I can feel the heat. It's too cold, I can feel the street. I'm just trying to make it through the day, not in my head trying to feel the beat. I'm trying to feel the beat. I'm trying to feel the beat. I'm trying to feel the beat. You gotta feel the beat. I'm trying to feel the beat. I just wanna feel the beat. I'm trying to feel the beat.
Feel the beat. 330 people have fallen victim to gun violence in the United States over the past 72 hours. Is now a good time to talk about gun reform?
The George Croom Experience, presented by Ad Closure, the secret agent of top agents. Is your home being marketed or is it just listed? Tell your agent you want Ad Closure marketing to help sell your home faster.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. This is George Croom. This is the George Croom Experience, and this is episode number 14. I think I did that right. Whatever. It's episode number 14. I'm so happy that you're here. Let's pay some bills really quick. George Croom Experience presented by Ad Closure, the secret agent of top agents. Talk to your agent about adding Ad Closure marketing and sell your home quicker. Look, man, DCAP is out, but oh, happy day. DCAP will be back tomorrow doing reads and talking to us about the things that are coming up. But today you're still stuck with just me and the people in the back. What up, y'all? And we're going to get this thing popping. So first up, we're going to talk about Brock Purdy. You know, he's pretty good. I made that up myself. So Brock Purdy is the third string quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers. And as a Dallas Cowboys fan, I'm not really a fan of talking about the San Francisco 49ers, but I feel like in certain cases, certain teams need to be spoken about because they're doing that good. Look, the San Francisco 49ers are so great that they've got the deepest quarterback bench in the world. It looks like, you know, when you're playing fantasy football and you have that guy in your league who decides he's going to hoard quarterbacks because he knows quarterbacks get hurt throughout the year. So through the first 5 or 6 rounds of your draft, he chooses every top quarterback that's still available. And so nobody has a quarterback that's going to do anything because this guy is sitting on them. And they're trade bait for the end of the year when his team sucks and he needs to ring off like 6 or 7 wins. That's the San Francisco 49ers. Right now, they've got that team. They've got that fantasy team where they've hoarded quarterbacks somehow. But somehow they found quarterbacks that, I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo, we knew Jimmy Garoppolo. We knew who he was when he left New England, and they knew who he was. He just so happens to be one of the highest paid backup quarterbacks to ever play the game of football, and then he got hurt. And then we stuck in a guy named Brock Purdy, a guy from Iowa State who was the last pick of the NFL draft last year. A guy that they call, because of being the last pick in the NFL draft, Mr. Irrelevant. But let me tell you what Mr. Irrelevant did. Mr. Irrelevant came in that last game, the game that he came into to fill in for Garoppolo when he went down against Miami. Came in, decided he was going to throw for 210 yards with a 67% completion rate. And he also threw for 2 touchdowns. Sure, he had 1 interception, but it's to be expected from a guy who just 9 months ago was called Mr. Irrelevant. Irrelevant. Okay, cool. You know, even a broken clock is right at least 2 times a day. So what does he do after that? After that, he goes and plays against Tampa Bay and the great Tom Brady. This was last week. Comes out there, gets smacked in the mouth in the first place, sacked. And we're like, oh, here we go. He's starting to look himself. And then he proceeds to reel off completion after completion to the point where they had put up 35 points against Tampa Bay. This kid had 2 touchdowns in the air, 1 touchdown on the ground. It actually looked like he was a running quarterback, and it's ridiculous the way that he played. Quarterback rating of a 135. Like, who is this kid? He's the first Mr. Irrelevant to ever start a game in the NFL. That means if you're a quarterback and you don't get drafted before the end of the draft, you will never play. Brock Purdy has, and he's made the most out of every opportunity. Sure, San Francisco has the best defense in football. Got it. Tracking all. But right now, this kid, Mr. Irrelevant, is making them relevant. And he's telling me right now, he's telling me, myself, he's telling everybody around the world, hey man, they can call you irrelevant, but it's up to you to decide whether you are or not. We'll be right back. G1 Commercial is a proud sponsor of the George Croom Experience. Stay tuned because more is coming up.
Now for more of the George Croom Experience, presented by Ad Closure.
All right, we try to keep that first break kind of short for you, and I hope that works. So we're back, George Croom with the George Croom Experience. We do this every single day right here on YouTube at 8 p.m. So if you're in need of something great in your life at the end of the day, you know, when you sit down to have your cup of coffee or tea, as it were, because some people can't handle coffee at night. I'm the only person that drinks coffee until 3 o'clock in the morning. If you're the kind of person that needs a little step away from the madness of the world and a step into something greatness, we'll be right here for you at 8 p.m. every day on YouTube. Let's get it popping. All right, so the Supreme Court looks to be favorable towards Lori Smith, and she's the one in the middle of this picture that you're looking at. So Lori Smith owns a company called 300 Creative LLC in Colorado, and her case has gone all the way to the Supreme Court because there is a law, in Colorado that says that she has to serve people in the LGBTQ community, or that is discrimination. And in her assertion, she feels that it's taking away from her freedom of speech as a creative, because she's a web designer. It's taking away from her freedom of speech if you force her to work with people with a message that she does not agree with. Some are going to tell me I'm wrong. And we already know my track record, so you can stay off the comments with me being a hater of the LGBTQ community. Check the record. I love everyone in the LGBTQ community. My little brother is a member of that community, and I will tell you right now that in this instance, when it comes to a web designer saying she doesn't want to work with people and do wedding websites for people in the LGBTQ community, I'm going to tell you she's not wrong. Because she's a creative. Look, it's the same if somebody told me that I had to have Proud Boys on my show, and I couldn't tell you that I don't support the Proud Boys and I will never serve Proud Boys on this show. And then they tell me that that's discriminatory and I have to allow Proud Boys to come onto my show, or else I'm violating the law. She is a creative. It's different. This is, and then they want to, I've had people over the last couple of days say, well, you know, what about restaurants that don't want to serve LGBTQ or serve black people or serve Republicans for that instance? What about them? What about them? How does that play in? Well, they're a brick and mortar. They use public services. So in my mind, if you're a brick and mortar, you become a public establishment by extension of the fact that you use public services. So you no longer have the right to tell somebody that because they are of something that you don't agree with, whether that be their race, their color, their creed, or however they identify. I'm telling you right now that if you are a brick and mortar, you do not have the right to tell them that they can't use your establishment. Because you're using the roads, the sidewalks, the gas, the sewer, the water of the public. So you must serve the entire public. As far as I'm concerned, Lori Smith is a creative. She does not need all of those things to do her job. And we can go into semantics and say that, you know, well, what if, you know, she uses her electricity? I mean, she can go off grid, all of that, blah, blah, blah. I'm telling you right now, if there's a restaurant who wants to go and run off solar and run off well water and cook their food off of natural gas that happens to pump out of the ground right behind their property, and that's theirs, they're on private land and not using any public services, well, then they can tell people they can't come in their establishment. I'm okay with that. I'm telling you that as long as you are brick and mortar using public services to fuel your business, you cannot discriminate against people in that manner. But if you are a creative, and then there's a whole other fact. Why do we want to fight to give people money who don't believe in who we are? Look, if Lori thinks that there's something wrong with people in the LGBTQ community, if John Smith down the road tells me he doesn't want to take my pictures because my family is Asian and black, well, then I don't want to give you my money. We have to hit that point. Certain people are never going to respect certain people, and that is okay. But what we need to understand is we don't need them to respect us. What we need to do is start pumping money and resources and efforts into making people who would otherwise be disrespected by those kind of people respect themselves. Let's pump our resources and our minds into empowering each other instead of giving people more power through our money that never, ever want to be around us. Let's bring it in. All right, so Kyrsten Sinema, Democrat, former Democrat, the senator formerly known as a Democrat from Arizona, is now going to switch parties and go to being an independent. And, you know, I love any opportunity to wag my finger at the party. The Democratic Party. This is my party. I am a Democrat. I will continue to say that, but I am not the kind of Democrat that wants to be a ride or die. I'm going to tell you, when Democrats sit there and tell Kyrsten Sinema that she's not a true Democrat and why doesn't she just switch the Republican Party? Well, she just said, you know what? Kick rocks. I won't go to either party. I'll make both of you earn my votes. Oh, by the way, I'll be able, from the independent angle of the aisle, I'll be able to take whatever money I want. You can call me a moneyed interest, whatever. I'm independent of both parties at this point. And Kyrsten Sinema, by all respects, is that candidate. Anytime that she runs for office, she's very good at gaining money from people with money. But look, Democrats, when you tell her, oh, you didn't support us when we were trying to make legislations to knock down the filibuster so that we could change voting rights, when you didn't support us when we were trying to push through minimum wage and the pandemic relief bill, why don't you just go and be Republican? You can't be mad at her now for making the decision to go independent, because that messes up your 50 majority. And I think she said she wasn't going to caucus with the Democrats. Well, honestly, she wasn't caucusing with the Democrats in the first place when she was a Democrat. So I don't think you're losing in that instance. You just lose the numbers. And if you didn't want her number anyways, you're getting what you asked for. Learn how to lead now with that 50 majority as opposed to having 51, because you lost a person who you told you didn't want in there. Your lucky Joe Manchin is power hungry enough to not leave and understands that West Virginia politics is a little bit different. Because if Joe Manchin was anybody else, he probably would have went to the Republican Party thinking that was a better angle for him. And then you would not have the majority in the Senate. But look, is Kyrsten Sinema under the thumb of big money? Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Since 2018, she's taken $2 million from the securities and investment industries. $2 million since 2018. She doesn't hide that fact. She doesn't, and right now, no longer does she have to hide it. And you know what? Good for her. Be who you are. Isn't that what we ask our politicians? Be who you are. Don't be somebody else. Well, she's being exactly who she is, and she's being in the open. But at the end of the day, nobody can say that her draw towards people with money is a wrong thing, because everybody's doing it. That is what Washington is built off of. There's a Scarface quote when he at the end of the movie, and he's sitting at the restaurant and he looks at everybody and he says, "You'll need people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. What does that make you? Good? You're not good. You just know how to hide." Kyrsten Sinema ain't hiding anymore. And for all of you other people who want to say she's wrong, especially you politicians, you just know how to hide. And she's no longer trying to. We'll be right back.
What is an asset-based lending philosophy? An asset-based lending philosophy focuses on assets instead of income. Let me explain. A traditional mortgage requires the borrower to prove they make enough income to cover their mortgage payment and all other debts. The amount of your income used to pay your debt is limited to somewhere around 50%. This means that if your debt is greater than the maximum debt-to-income ratio, your loan is denied. An asset-based loan doesn't use your income to qualify. It uses the property securing the loan and its ability to generate cash flow or appreciation as the primary qualifier. In a nutshell, G1 Commercial Mortgage is a bank alternative mortgage finance company for real estate investors. If you get denied by a bank or do not want to go through the traditional bank underwriting process, give us a call.
All right, welcome back to the George Croom Experience. I am George Croom, and this show is the George Croom Experience, and it's sponsored by G1 Commercial. If you have been turned down for a loan from a traditional loan house like a bank, check out the people at G1 Commercial and get your loan life together. Hey, if you're looking for investments, I've used them for my properties, and I'm telling you, the people over at G1 Commercial, led by my guy, Mr. Smith, is a fantastic place. I'm going to try to get him in here to talk about that in the next coming weeks here. But I highly recommend their services, especially if you're new to the investment game, because they do a great job of teaching new investors how to navigate that world. And after you talk to him, you can come talk to my team about finding the property that you're looking for. See how I did that? Shameless plug. Thanks, G1. All right, so we're moving right along, and we're going to talk about something that's a little less it's a little less charged in the last couple of segments. So in Iran, they've been having these protests over the last, what are we in, December? Over the last 3 or 4 months now, since September, when Mahsa Amini was killed after being detained by the morality police. She was killed in custody by whomever had detained her, simply for wanting to express herself as a woman and wear a shirt that her arms were out in. And that was against the law in Iran for women to do so. And so we fast forward to the last week, when 2 of the protesters that are protesting this heinous act and the way that Iran treats its women, two of those people over the last week have been executed. And not just executed, they've been executed publicly. I mean, and not, without due process, no trial. And we can say, especially in the case of Majid Reza, who was hung yesterday publicly, in this case, we're talking about a person that was in their 20s who was only given a 23-day trial. He was arrested, he was tried and sentenced to death, and then executed in 23 days. Iran will tell you that it's crimes against God, that he is acting in a manner that is against God. I will tell you that it's the Iranian government looking at a person like Majid Reza and saying, we don't want you standing up and fighting for something that we don't believe you should have. And everybody in the country has turned a blind eye, but I'm looking at this as genocide. This is Khomeini's way. Since Khomeini came into power in 1989, we have seen thousands upon thousands of people killed because they oppose the way that they are forced to live in Iran. And the world not seeing this as genocide is absolutely hypocritical to me. We were willing to charge generals for genocide, for killing just 8,000 people in places like Serbia, but we're not going to do the same in Iran. We don't want that smoke. See, it's a lot. Our silence throughout the world, whether it's the United States, whether it's the UK, whether it's Israel, and any part of the world where you are silent to these types of atrocities, you are giving consent. Your silence gives consent to these murderers, to these strongmen like Putin, like the President Xi's, like the Kim Jong-uns, to continue terrorizing people not only in their own country, but making everybody else in the world fearful. And it's all based off money. There's no money in stopping atrocities. Because once you get to a certain, and we keep sanctioning them, sanctions only hurt their pockets while people continue to die. So are lives not worth the money that you need to put in to save those lives? I'm going to repeat, and I just don't understand, why do we have a military in the United States that we pump over $750 billion into every single year that we don't want to use? We've spent over $7 trillion on our military over the last 10 years, and we are afraid to use them to do the right things. But we'll go in and take your oil. We'll go in and take over your country and change your leader when it suits us. But when there's no money in it for us, we don't use our military for that. Our mercenaries stay at home. So that's where I'm at with that. Look, I spend my day with my child who tells me that he believes there's monsters under the bed, and then I leave his room and I'm instantly confronted with the fact that I have to worry about the monsters around the world that want him under their thumb. And that's not a world that I'm willing to pass on. And that's why I'm asking everybody that's listening, everybody that's watching, to wake up and decide what kind of world we want to live in. We'll be right back.
Wait, bruh. Shouldn't every video your team puts out draw an emotion? Take the viewer on a journey. And highlight your markets as places they can live and call home.
The truth about America, and by some accounts the world, is that our leaders on average are not driven by values. The needle does not move to the needs of others in most situations. It moves towards the needs of a few, and often those few have money. I'm not the person to say that all rich people are bad, and in addition, simply because a rich person enjoys their life doesn't make them bad. They're allowed to enjoy what they've worked for, even if you don't value the quality of that work. See, I start my home ownership and prosperity education courses out by telling a poem on day 1 and minute 1. The poem is by KRS-One, a popular rapper whose insight on life from the perspective and reflection of people living in the hood rivals some of history's most renowned philosophers. But that's just my opinion. KRS starts the poem out like this. Everybody's bad and everybody's tough. But how many people are intelligent enough to open up their eyes and see through the lies, discipline themselves, yourself, to stay alive? Not many. That's why the universe sent me today on this stage with this to say. The rich will get richer and the poor will get poorer. In the final hour, many heads will lose power. But what does the rich versus poor really mean? Psychologically, it means you've got to pick your team. So when someone says the rich gets richer, visualize wealth and put yourselves in the picture. You see, there's no lack of money and resources in the world. There's a lack of self-worth. The type of self-worth that can only be fostered through generations of being built up. It's why when people show us who they are, I don't seek to silence them. The politician that would rather satisfy rich friends over the majority of their constituents, see it. The homophobes that don't want to provide service to people that express who they are despite religious views or opinion, see it. The autocrats that rule by fear and tyranny, see it. Then visualize through it, visualize past it, and visualize better. No matter what you are going through, visualize wealth, not just of money, but also of mind, body, and spirit. Then paint your most worthy sense of self into that picture. Be good to each other. I'll see you tomorrow.